start with an opening prayer. Is someone scheduled for that?
I think Dansha was.
Dansha, you're giving opening prayer today?
Well, no, but I'm very glad to
Oh,
give
okay.
I wrote, Samara's thought it was you, so I wrote it. She wrote your name down, so I said, well, it must be for a prayer. Or maybe she was just, who knows what she was going to do with your name.
All right, Sister Dansha, we were honored to hear your prayer.
Yeah, I'm honored to give one. So, hello, hi, dear Heavenly Father, dear Heavenly Mother, hi, dear Heavenly Son. We are very thankful that we are all gathered together here, and thank you for this wonderful technology, and thank you for keeping us together. Thank you for keeping us close. Thank you for this priesthood family. We are thankful for all the knowledge we are getting and we are going to get from our dear friend Philos today. Thank you for all the divine beings and entities that you are sending to us to give us knowledge, to show us our light, to show us your love and your light, that you are unendlessly and unconditionally pouring onto us. And we ask that we are empty vessels for all the light and love that you both want to give us, and we receive it with open heart, and we are ready to receive every single drop of light and love and knowledge that you want to give us. We are very thankful for everything you do to us every single day, that you do for us, and for keeping the celestial light on this planet Earth to shine forth no matter the amount of darkness. Thank you. In the name of Yeshua of Nazareth, we are grateful and we ask for even more light and wisdom and love so we can even more share it to all humanity. In the name of Yeshua of Nazareth, so be it.
So be it. Yeah. What a beautiful prayer. Thank you.
Straight from the heart.
Oh, it was beautiful. That was beautiful.
Okay, so we have anybody who has an opening song today?
Well, no, we
Not gonna do that? Okay, forgive me.
Wrong meeting.
I'm not. Need to have Brother Reggie run these meetings, not me, because he thinks it's clearly. I think off in Lululand most of the time.
I think it's La La Land.
Well, that's it. See, there you go.
He's in his own land. Right, he doesn't even know La La.
All right, so on the agenda today is, besides Philos, is what? Anything?
That's it.
Okay, so once again, we had technical difficulties. We had, Philos had prepared a couple graphics that he wanted you guys to be able to see on the screen, but when we went to get on to Zoom on Samara's computer where the graphics were, it didn't work.
It crashed.
The computer crashed. So we're on our alternative system, which doesn't have the graphics. So I'm just going to have Samara read them when Philos starts talking about that part. And you want to write it down. You maybe can even hold it up so they can see it, so they can write it down good. Okay, so we're going to channel Philos now. I'm going to channel Philos now. So everybody just be quiet for a second. Let me connect it, and then we'll begin. Greetings, everyone.
Philos.
Greetings, Philos.
And I'd like everyone to introduce themselves, please. To me, that's here today.
Who wants to start?
I'll start.
Hi.
This is Erica. Oh.
Ladies first.
Hi, Philos. This is Erica.
Hello, Erica.
I don't have I don't see you all on my screen, so I don't know who's next. So
Dante.
just speak up.
Yeah. Hi, Philos. My name is Dante or ZJ Kujel. So nice to meet you again. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. I'm excited to know everything that you like to share us. So I'm open for everything that Elohim wants us to know. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
You are very welcome, and it's a great big encyclopedia, so take good notes.
Wow. Hi, Philos. I'm Jeanette Snyder. It's so great to meet you.
Hello there, Jeanette. Great to meet you as well.
Hello, Philos. This is Reggie, Ramsel Krell, Palstar. Pleasure meeting you for the second time.
Pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure.
Hi, Philos. This is Kiel. It's nice to meet you again. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Kiel. And I like to say, Kiel, you have a nice simple name like me. That's very appreciated. Easy to remember and say. All right, so my understanding is that everyone would like to learn Celestine Vibronics. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so this is an interactive thing. So if I ask a question, you have to answer the questions just like I would answer your questions. So, all right, so let's go on there. And let's talk first about what is Celestine Vibronics. And so, Shriona, I'd like you to read that. And if you can, hold it up so that they can see that. So Shrilion's going to read. I tried to write it down to a concise way for you to see.
Can you see this? What is Celestine Vibronics, or for short, CV? It is the science of manipulating one or more of a person's 6 senses to affect a change in the speed, direction, and size of the energy centers and the vitality of their aura to achieve a desired change in their health and abilities.
So now you can help them to get that all down, because everyone should write that down, word for word as that is, so that they already have a start with an understanding of what Celestine Vibronics is, and what the purpose is, and what we're trying to achieve with Celestine Vibronics. All right, so Celestine Vibronics is a very, very powerful and fast-acting way to heal people of most things, and to also make changes in their behavior, changes in their habits, changes in their thought process and what they think. It's something that you have to be very conscious of and use only for light purposes, because it could be used in many cases for dark purposes if you so desire. So that is why in Celestine Vibronics we have multiple levels, and no one is allowed to advance to higher levels until they've proven that they can use Celestine Vibronics correctly for good purposes in the lower levels. And so today I'm just going to be beginning to talk some things a bit about Celestine Vibronics and some of the foundational points of it. There's nothing that you're going to be able to go out and do good or harm with just having this basic knowledge. But if you wish to continue with this, and we will continue for those who wish and who can show and demonstrate that they have good intentions and actions using Celestine Vibronics, and I'd be happy to share that knowledge, because it's the knowledge that once you have it, you can benefit a very great number of people in the world. Starting with yourself. Celestine Vibronics works very well on yourself. All right, so read once more, not slowly, just normally, the definition of Celestine Vibronics.
It is the science of manipulating one or more of a person's 6 senses to affect a change in the speed, direction, and size of their energy centers and the vitality of their aura to achieve a desired change in their health and ability.
All right, very good. Now read the first 3 words.
It is the
next
science.
All right, 4 words. All right, so let's start on that word, science. What's the difference between science and art? Anyone?
Science and art?
Yes. Someone say, you could say Celestine Vibronics is the art of. or the science of. What's the difference between the science of and the art of?
One's proven. Right?
That's part of it.
And
Yes.
one is the other is creative and a theory.
That's part of it. Basically, if you're dealing with science, and it doesn't matter what science it is, think of chemistry as an example. If you're dealing with a science and you do X, Y, and Z, and you get a result, and someone you don't even know on the other side of the world also does X, Y, and Z, they're going to get the exact same result. That's the science. And art is that if you do X, Y, and Z, you get this result. But if someone on the other side of the world does X, Y, and Z, they may get a different result based upon their own creativity and everything else. Well, that's not what Celestine Vibronics is. Celestine Vibronics is science. That means that when you do X, Y, Z, you get the same results that everyone else that does the same procedure will get. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get varying results with different people, because every person that you might be working with has different maladies, different challenges, different problems. And so your results are going to manifest perhaps in a different way because you're dealing with a different challenge or a different problem with that person. But the science of the energy that's making that occur is going to be the same for every CD practitioner that's using it. So that's a very important point to understand. And understand that you're going to be using the same procedure with knowing that the energy output of that procedure is going to be the same for every CD practitioner that's using it, but the results with the person might be different simply because the person that you're treating has a different challenge, say over in London, England, than the person that's in New York City has. You see, so there's different challenges. So the manifestation of the science might be different, but the science itself is going to be the same. So there's not something that when someone thinks, well, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, or I'm going to do that, CD is a science. And so it must, to have the results you want, you must do it the way it's supposed to be done. All right. So read again your statement. And I'm asking you to read it a lot because repetition in the learning process is very important. When you hear what I say, which I don't even know if you can understand what I say with my accent anyway, but when you hear what I say, if I just said it one time, most of you would not remember that at the end of this lesson. And if you were to ask, what did Philos say? Well, this, that would be a little snippets here and there. So we repeat things so that it settles in the mind. That's a Celestine Vibronics technique, but repetition helps greatly to make the desired effect. So would you please read again, Matt?
It is the science of manipulating one or more of a person's 6 senses to effect a change in the speed, direction, and size of their energy centers and the vitality of their aura to achieve a desired change in their health and abilities.
All right, so let's go to the next step. The 6 senses. What are the 6 senses? Anyone want to start with all or one of them?
Sound, taste, touch, sight.
Smell.
All right. Somebody write this
Smell.
down, please. I want them written down so that everyone has them. So write down the 6 senses.
Hearing,
Smell, taste.
Not hearing everyone speak, you have to speak a little louder.
So touch, sight, smell, mind, I believe is the 6th sense.
Sound.
Smell,
Sound.
sight, hearing.
Yeah.
All right, so what am I hearing? Let's do one at a time. So if you've written down, write them down so
Okay.
as people say them, please.
I've got smell,
Smell, that's one.
taste,
Sight.
Taste, another. They're very related, those two.
sight,
Sight, all right.
touch,
Touch, all right.
um,
Hearing.
sound,
Hearing. Did you
right?
up there?
That's
All right, so
sound.
that's 5. What's the 6th one?
That's
Mind.
Psychic. Psychic.
Psychic.
All right. And the psychic and the mind are very closely related. You can't actually have the psychic unless you also have the mind, because the mind is necessary to analyze, control, and motivate the psychic. All right. So Now let's look at those senses. And what do you do with the senses with Celestine Vibronics?
To activate them.
Eric, what are you trying to use Celestine Vibronics to affect or change? So there are 6 energies, not energy centers, not talking about that, 6 energies that you use, that you affect with Celestine Vibronics. And so when you're working on yourself, or if you're working on someone else, you need to understand what you're trying to achieve first. And so you need to look at these 6 energies and say, which of these 6 energies are you going to be using Celestine Vibronics to make a change in that person? So would you please read and show those 6 energies to people? So they write these down. 6 energies.
Oh, you read them.
Okay. Smell.
No.
Oh.
These
No.
energies. Here.
Okay.
All right.
What are you trying to affect?
Oh, okay.
And what are you using to make that effect? So let's say that you have an illness. You're sick with something, the flu, the COVID, whatever that you're sick with, and you want to heal this person. You want to make this person better. So there's 6 energies that you can use to make this person better. Maybe you're going to use all 6, or maybe you're going to use 5, or maybe you're only going to use 1. But you need to decide as a Celestine Vibronics adept or even a practitioner, which of those energies are you going to use to make a change in this person's health here. All right, so what are those 6 energies that you have in your toolbox to work with?
So you want to have your title, the primary energies to which we have sensitivity.
Alamars. Alamars have sensitivity. The primary energies to which Alamars, which is what you are, all Alamars, have sensitivity. So humans are Alamars. But you call them humans on this world, they're called something else on other words. So to make sure we're talking about the same type of beings, we're going to always call humans Alamars henceforth in Celestine Vibronics. Debbie, go ahead.
And that's ALAMARS. So number 1, physical. Number 2, universal. Number 3, psychic. Number 4, emotional. Number 5, magical. Number 6, faith.
All right.
Faith.
Faith.
So
Thank you.
one question, these are the primary energies that Alamars?
That Alamars has
Have
sensitivity.
sensitivity to. So these are there are other energies that Alamars have sensitivity to, but these are the 6 primary energies that Alamars are very sensitive to. So they react. So for instance, maybe you come into a home and it has an aroma that you haven't smelled since your childhood, and it's just aroma that you had such a love for when you were a child, and immediately that smell, that's one of the physical things, that's a smell, and it immediately has an effect upon your body and your mind and your emotions, and that's a change. So that's something that Alamars are sensitive to. So that's what we're talking about here. What are energies that Alamars are extremely sensitive to? Because those are the energies you're going to use in Celestine Vibronics to make the changes that you want. As a Celestine Vibronics practitioner or adept, you want to be able to make quick, rapid changes in someone's energies, whatever they are. If they're sick with an illness, a physical illness, you want to be able to get rid of that physical illness. If they have emotional problems, mental problems, work challenges, relationship problems, you want to be able to help solve those problems very quickly. And you do that by introducing one or more of these 6 energies to that person in a way that changes the speed, the size, the orientation of their energy center, and makes a very rapid change. So that's what we're going to be talking about more. So let's talk to the first one, physical. Physical is number one because there's a reason of the 6. It's the one that's most easy and most common to affect people's energy or physical things. So when you look at the senses that you talked about, well, touch is obviously a physical sense, sight's a physical sense. All of those first 5 are really physical senses, even though you might say something like smell, well, that's not really physical, but it is physical because it's something that's coming into your nose, and your brain is analyzing what those smells are. And so it is a physical as well. And so when you look at Celestine Vibronics, we use a lot of physical things in Celestine Vibronics. There's a lot of things that when we want to treat someone and we want to make a change in their energy centers, and through that make a change in their life, in their health, in their attitude, we're going to use one or more physical things. So you think of those 5 senses that we talked about first, not the psychic sense, but the other 5 physical ones. And in Celestine Vibronics, you're going to use oftentimes all 5 of them treating someone. So let's say you have someone laying on a table and you're treating them with Celestine Vibronics. You may introduce certain aromatherapy essential oil aromas to them, and that generates something that changes in their auric field or their energy centers. You may introduce sound to them. It could be something as simple as a very melodious background music. It could be something more specific, like certain drumming patterns on a drum or certain sounds on a cart's harp. So those are things that you might introduce to, again, why are you introducing those things? Because introducing them will make a change in their energy centers. And making that change in their energy centers in the hour will make a change in whatever their problem or challenges that they came to you in the first place for. So physical is a very great thing. So with this person here that's laying on the table, and you've given them some aromatherapy, that's the smell, you've done some specific sound that's going to be for some purpose. You may show them something with their eyes that they see. Maybe it could even be seen with their eyes closed. For instance, if you have very bright, like their eyes are closed, but a very bright light is shining on their eyelids, they're still going to be sensitive to that light, even though their eyelids are closed. So sight can be purposely used even if the eyes are closed, depending on what it is that you're trying to help them to see. But you can also have to ask them to open their eyes and look at something specifically, a color, or a device, or a movement, or even you. So you've got this sound, you've got the smell, you've got the sight, and then you can touch them with various things, from a feather to a crystal to your finger to your hand to something else. There's many things you can touch them with to give that physical sensation. And so if you look at your 5 senses, there's things that you can do, and we'll get into, not today, but in other lessons, specific things that you can do with every one of those 5 senses. And each one of the things that you do is going to have some effect upon their energy centers and their auric field. It's going to, and the effect that you want, of course, is when that person came to you, and again, you may be your own patient, that's okay too. So when you came to yourself, or someone came to you for help, you're thinking about what is their problem, what energies am I going to target to make a change in their auras or their energy fields to change and solve the problem. So for instance, perhaps somebody is very timid, and so people walk all over them. So they've come for help because they want to be more assertive and more not let people walk on them anymore. Well, that's a problem as great as if someone comes to you with a flu or COVID or something like that that needs to be healed. And so each of these things we're going to look at, what can we use to help make a change? Which energy is the most effective, or maybe all of them are. So we're starting with the physical. And the physical is number 1, because those are things that you consciously are going to apply as a CD practitioner or a dip to make a change. Now, go to the next one.
Number 2, universal.
Universal. What is universal energy? Universal energy is energy that comes without anybody asking for it to come. And it comes on every person, both the good and the bad, the poor and the rich, the deserving and the undeserving. So for instance, when the sun shines in the sky, and someone is outside in that sun, they could be the most evil person in the world, and the sun's going to shine on them as just as strong and warm and bright as the person who's the most wonderful and righteous person in the world. So universal energy is an energy that you cannot control the energy of a universal energy unless you get to a higher level of adepts. But you can still use it even if you can't control it. So for instance, if you have someone who's feeling glum, as an example, and they're always depressed or they're always anxious about things, putting them out in the sunshine can be extremely valuable for changing their energy centers and their aura and getting rid of that problem, at least on a temporary basis, because the sun goes away and it's the nighttime later, but for that moment in time. And so you didn't manipulate the sun, which you're going to do as an energy adept. You're going to be manipulating energies. You didn't manipulate that energy, but you did take advantage of that energy by putting that person, telling them, okay, wait, I need you to sit in the sun. You may do other work with them while they're in the sun, but you've put it in that universal energy of the sun, and that alone has an effect upon them without you doing anything else, right? So, and again, in later lessons, we'll talk more about other universal energies. Today, I'll just talk about the sun. But today is kind of an introduction for these things. So go to the next thing, please.
Number 3, psychic.
Psychic. Psychic is a very interesting one. Psychic's not physical. You're not touching someone with anything physical, but you are touching someone very powerfully when you use your psychic connections. Now, psychic abilities, as a CV adept, you're going to be able to project your psychic energies to the other person's psychic energy center, wherever they are in the world, and it can make a very great change. Because, for instance, have any of you ever just been all of a sudden thinking about nothing in particular, and all of a sudden this brilliant idea comes into your mind? And it just like seems to pop out of the ethers into your mind. It wasn't even anything you were thinking about. Has anyone ever experienced anything like that?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So
All day.
that type of thing can happen with you as a CV practitioner or adept working with someone remotely. And this is only a small, teeny example here. But those ideas that popped into your head, I'm sure nobody, no Alamar sent them to you at this point, but you can, as a CV practitioner adept, do that. If someone is having in another part of the world and you're working with them, it's difficult to do that, but it's possible. And you can send a thought to them with even if you're not talking to them, if you're not seeing them, they may be asleep, they may be awake, but you can send a thought psychically to them that has a dramatic effect upon one or more other energy centers, but it begins with the psychic. So the psychic can send also emotions. So with your psychic center, you can send mental and emotional thoughts. That's the primary purpose of the psychic, is to send mental thoughts and emotional feelings to a person over a distance where you're not physically connected to them at that point. Now, be aware that distance does matter. So for instance, if someone's in the room right next to you and you send them a psychic thought or feeling, then that person is very likely to be affected immediately by it as you desire. But if that person's on the other side of the world, it's still possible, but it's far, far more difficult to do that, at least without a great amount of dilution in the psychic energy. Why is that? Because between that person and you, there's a great amount of chaos energy of all the other people and all the other energies that are in the world. So for you to be able to create a tunnel that goes through all that chaos energy and reaches that person intact, in full, is something that is your first learning Celestine Vibronics you will not be able to do until you become more proficient and more adept. But it is possible. But do remember that when you're first learning and you're first starting, that if you're going to be sending and transmitting psychic energy, emotions, or thoughts to a person, that the closer they are to you, the less chaos energy that's between you and them, the more likely you are going to have success at what you're trying to achieve. And it's always best when it's possible, when you're first learning Celestine Vibronics, particularly, that you are working with people who are physically with you. So you don't have chaos energy between you. It's just you and them with no chaos energy in between you, and then that you can work right together. And then as you get more practice and more experience, you can be further and further apart. But again, be very conscious that with every foot, with every meter, with every mile or kilometer that you are apart from that person, there's that much more chaos energy between you that's going to make it more challenging and greater to be able to send psychic energy to them. So keep that in mind. Whenever possible, always work with people in person. Got it. Next thing on your list.
Are you going to speak about how to do that?
Maybe I'll think about it.
Okay.
Maybe not today, but we'll see.
Okay.
I mean, because you're talking about how to pierce through the chaos energy.
Right.
So, no, I'm not going to speak about that today because that's an advanced Celestine Vibronics technique that is not for a beginning class.
Okay. Number 4, emotional.
Okay, so this is a very great one as well. You want to be able to, as a Celestine Vibronics practitioner or adept, you want to be able to affect people's emotional state. People get into all types of emotional states, but are detrimental to their well-being. This might include yourself. Again, you can be your own patient, so that's fine. So as a Celestine Vibronics practitioner or adept, you want to be able to understand what you can do to be able to change someone's emotional state very quickly. And there's a lot of things that you can do, but look at what are your things that you use. You use all the things like the sight and the sound and the hearing and the smell, and the touch and the psychic. So which of those, or multiple ones of those, are you going to use on yourself or a patient to be able to affect a change in their emotional state? So as a practitioner or adept, you need to ask yourself that question right at the beginning. If you say, let's say you have a person who has anxiety, or maybe you have anxiety. And so you're going to ask yourself, okay, you've identified what the problem is emotionally. That's one of the 6 energies that our humans are sensitive to, is emotional energies. So you've identified, well, I need to change this emotional problem about anxiety. So which of these 6 tools that I have am I going to use to do that? Is it going to be something that they hear, something that they smell, something that they feel, something that is sent to them psychically? You're going to go through those 6 things and say, as the person that's going to make that change, going to manipulate that energy, which of these tools are you going to use to accomplish that? And then you use that. And then you make that change. And it occurs because it's a science. And so as we get into further lessons, you'll learn specifically what those things are that you can do. I'm sure that many of you already know many of these things and have used them yourself in your own life. If you have, how many people in this group have ever been not feeling great for whatever? They got in an argument, they're just not happy, they don't even know why they're depressed, and they go and they eat their favorite comfort food to make a change. Has anyone ever done that?
Yes. No. Absolutely not.
Cinnamon roll.
Even when it's something that you know physically may not be good for your body, you're going, emotionally it is. And so that is a physical tool. And when you're using a tool, sometimes that's the right thing to do. So for instance, if, like you mentioned, cinnamon rolls as an example. Well, cinnamon rolls made with white flour and lots of sugar are definitely not good physically for your body. And if you're eating those on any kind of a regular basis, you're going to be destroying your body. But if you have a particular emotional problem that is not an ongoing everyday problem that you want to eat a cinnamon roll every day, and that's the answer that might change that emotion for that moment, and it's not going to become a habit, then that could be a tool of Celestine Vibronics at that point, because you're going to be doing a teensy weensy little physical harm at that moment for perhaps a great emotional good. And so that's something when you look at Celestine Vibronics, you don't look at the tools that you may use as ways that you might always think, well, eating a cinnamon roll with all that sugar and white flour, that's a bad thing. And yes, it is a bad thing physically if you're doing it on a regular basis, but if you're using it as a CV tool for a particular purpose, for a one-time occasion, then that would be actually a permissible tool to use in Celestine Vibronics. So when you're looking at your problems, in this case emotional, it's an emotional problem, but you're going to say, what of the tools am I going to use? And you're going to have all those tools. We're going to go through them in great detail in further lessons. And so you'll have a lot of tools, but you know a lot already because you do this, both for yourself and others. How many of you have had a friend or family member that was not feeling well? They had something bad happen in their life, or maybe they broke up a relationship, or they lost their job, or they're just feeling bad about themselves, and you come and you counsel them as a friend, and you talk to them, and you change. They become not so despondent about their situation because of what you said, because of what they had, because of what they felt emotionally from your empathy and your sympathy. And so you made a change in their energy centers. And I'm sure everyone's experienced that, right?
Mhm.
Yes, everyone say yes.
Yes.
You've experienced
Yes.
it.
Yes, yes.
Otherwise, if I think you're falling asleep, then I know I'm not supposed to do it. So I need to know everyone's awake when I do those little tests every now and then. All right, so that's something that goes. Go to the next one then.
I just wanted to mention, since we were on emotional and speaking of like eating things that we shouldn't normally eat, you have to be aware of addictions as well. If you're going to play in that world, you have to be aware that it's very easy when you're dealing with addictive substances to get caught in that. So just check in with that, am I doing, is this a one-time thing? Or how often you're needing to get that emotional lift. Is it every day now? Or is it, many times a day?
Caffeine is a very good example of that.
Mhm.
Many wonderful people are addicted to caffeine. And they may not think they're addicted to caffeine, but if they try stopping drinking their daily coffee or their daily tea or their 1 pound of chocolate that they eat every day, please soon find out that they are very drawn back, and it's very hard not to continue that habit. So that's something to think about too. You should not ever, as an adept particularly, you should make sure you're not addicted to substances because they can affect how you react if they're an addiction. If they're a stimulus that you're using to stimulate an energy center on a temporary, one-time or very infrequent basis, then could be a very wonderful thing. But if they're a habit that you can't function without it, so there are people I know, and again, many wonderful people, they simply cannot function if they don't have their cup of coffee in the morning, first thing. Otherwise, they just go through the whole day in a daze. And that is an addiction there that is not helping them, even though they may think that it is helping them. That's not helping them. But so let's go on to the next thing.
I just wanted to add one more thing about that, is that because it's interesting with the brain, it will compensate. And so if you're using it, once it becomes an addiction, your brain needs more and more and more to get that same level of lift or whatever you're looking for it to do. Okay, we're going on to the next one. Is magical. Number 5 is magical.
All right, so magical is my favorite one, actually. Magical, and we're not going to talk very much about details of magical ones in these low-level Celestine Vibronics because they're not secrets for people to know unless they are serious about Celestine Vibronics and have a good foundation of the basics before they go on to the magical. But I'm talking about it now just so you understand that it is one of the energies that you do work with as you get forward into Celestine Vibronics. And magical is very important because as a Celestine Vibronics practitioner or adept, you can use magical energy to make those changes in people's energy centers and aura that help them have the desired effect. But you also need to be very aware that other people can use magical energy to be hurting someone. And so you as a Celestine Vibronics adept need to be able to recognize when someone is being affected negatively by magical energy so that you can help them to not be affected by it any longer. And you can often will need to use other magical energy to counter that. So I'm not going to talk more about that today because that is a little bit more advanced than we are right now in our teaching. So go on to the next.
So you don't want to give any examples at this time? What you're
just what I've already said.
Okay. Number 6, faith.
Right. Faith is another energy that affects Alamars very much. And faith is wonderful because faith is something that is almost always used for good purposes. Now, faith can be used for bad purposes, but normally someone who has a bad intent can't have faith. They don't, because their intent is based on something that's bad. They're not able to manifest true faith in obtaining what it is they desire. And they're always going to have doubts. So 99% of the time, faith can only be used for good purposes. And so that's a wonderful thing. Now, if you look at different religions in the world, there's many of them that think that they are the only religion in the whole world that's right. And I'm sorry to say that's wrong. There are very many good things that are taught by many religions. That doesn't mean there aren't some bad things taught as well. But overall, most religions teach people to be better people. And they teach them how to be better people, how to be better individuals, how to be better husbands, how to be better wives, how to be better children, how to be better parents, how to be better grandparents. So these are things that they teach within the context of their own religious doctrines and tenets. But you don't have to have any religion to use faith. You could be an atheist even who doesn't believe in God, but believes in faith very greatly in a particular thing. Now, it's a very unlikely scenario that an atheist would ever have enough faith to do anything, but it is possible, so I'll put it out there. But for most parts, people who have a religion, and again, I'm not talking about any particular religion, in the most instances that people have a religion, whatever it is, are going to be much more receptive and capable of receiving faith energy to help them. So again, if you have, for instance, in Celestine Light, you may lay your hands upon someone's head, and you don't even have to be a CD practitioner, just a priesthood holder. If you can lay your hands on someone's head and you give them a blessing, it's your faith and their faith together that are helping that blessing to be achieved, and faith in Elohim and faith in Yeshua. The more faith, the better. And the more people that are involved with faith, the better. So for instance, if one person is laying their hands upon the head, one priesthood holder, and giving someone a blessing, it doesn't have to be a healing blessing. It could be a blessing for anything. But whatever that blessing is, that's one priesthood holder, one person receiving the blessing. And so their faith is what's generated between the two of them. And that's creating a faith energy. Now, of course, the priesthood holder also is, besides faith, the priesthood holder is also a bridge for energy from Elohim, totally separate. So I don't want to get confused there. Totally separate from the faith energy, because they have that authority as a priesthood holder to channel the energy of Elohim for the purpose that they are doing. But in addition to that, faith can also add great energy and power to that purpose, to make a healing or to make even an ordination to something, a calling to something. So, but faith, if you have, let's say a group that's not Celestine group, we'll have a group of Catholics over here, and the Catholics have someone that is ill, that they want to heal, that they would like to see healed, and they get together in their congregation, and the priest goes up and he gives a prayer to Heavenly Father, or however he wants to call Heavenly Father, God, whatever he wants to call him, just Father, whatever. He's praying, he knows who he's praying to, the people in the congregation know who he's praying to, and he's praying for all of them. And as he says his words, that we would like this beloved sister or brother or person, whoever they are, to be healed of that illness. And he says that everyone in the group there is praying that same prayer. As his words are their words, his feelings are their feelings. That creates a great amount of faith, and of course the faith that what they're trying to achieve is going to be accomplished, and that their prayers to the God that they perceive is manifested, is real. That creates that faith energy that then calls in that power of Elohim, calls in that great power. And it doesn't, people say, well, you have to be a Catholic, or you have to be a Mormon, or you have to be this, or you have to be a Muslim, or you have to be in order to have the power of God come and help you. And I tell you, that's not true. Faith in God, in the perception of God that someone has, that faith is enough to call in the energy, even if the energy they think they're calling isn't even by the correct name. You know that Yeshua said, he doesn't care what people call him. They can call him Yeshua, they can call him the rock, they can call him the light, they can call him Stephen, whatever they want to call him, as long as he knows that they are calling him and that they are trying to reach him and they are asking him for his help, he will respond. And that's the same with faith energy. Faith energy responds to the faith. Even if that faith is directed in a misplaced way, maybe they're praying to a God that doesn't even exist. Maybe they're praying to the tree on the hill that they're calling God. They're, oh, great tree, please help us. Well, even though they're calling to the great tree, that's not a God. The great God that is Elohim will hear them and will know that they're trying to reach them and trying to get their help, and that will bring that there. Now, you can also have faith that has nothing to do with God, and it's still an energy that can be affected. So, for instance, if you have to take the word belief and you have to take the word faith. And what's the difference between belief and faith? Well, belief is something that you think you can do, and until you get evidence to the contrary, you're going to continue to think you do. But if you get evidence to the contrary, you're no longer going to have that belief. So, for instance, someone may be one political thing when they are at a certain age. Maybe they are a liberal or a conservative, or Republican, Democrat, whatever people have politics where they are. And they may be that way. And then later, as they learn more things, they realize, that actually was not the correct way. And the better way is this way. So that's a belief. Beliefs can change. Beliefs can change. As you have more knowledge and more experience, your beliefs change. And if you think about your own life, I'm sure each one of you can think about beliefs that you've had in the past that you no longer have because you received more knowledge and more experience to realize that former belief was not valid. So you change your belief to something different. Faith is not like that. You may have no evidence that you've ever seen that your faith is real, that your faith is what you think it is. Because with faith, knowledge and evidence, they're not as important as it is with belief. With faith, it's that absolute knowing inside of you that this is something that can be done. That is faith, is so strong. And faith is not swayed by contrary knowledge. So you may have faith, for instance, let's say you're a athletic person and you're competing in a competition, a race, and you have faith, even though you have no evidence. Maybe every person that you're racing against has beat you in the past in that race. So you have no evidence that you can win that race because every single person there has beat you and you have never beat them even once. But today you have faith that you are going to win that race. You just know it's true. You know it. You even have no evidence of it. You absolutely know that you are going to win that race today. That's faith. And that faith will give that person power they've never had before, a physical power. It will affect their energy centers, it will affect their aura, and they will win that race that day because they had unwavering faith that it would be so, despite all the evidence to the contrary. So that is faith energy. Faith energy is extremely powerful, but in order for it to work, the person that you're working with, whether it's yourself or a patient, has to have that faith energy as well in what you're doing, in what you're calling upon. So if you're going to call on faith energy for yourself or for someone else, it needs to be that type of unwavering. Think about the example I just gave you of the person winning the race that they've never won before against anybody they're racing against. But that day they do, because the faith gave them the power to do it. So if you're working on yourself, if you're going to call in faith energy, you need to first call in that unwavering ability to believe in what you're doing despite any evidence. So for instance, let's say you're trying to do telekinesis and you're trying to get this, well, bring that over
Yeah,
here to show that. This is something that they've created, they haven't yet trained it, but they created it so you can get an example of what you do. So just hold it up for them to see. So this is a device here that is, you might have seen that in people have it outside their house. They're little wind things, so if the wind, you can turn them, they're just turn so they see. So if you're outside in the wind, that the wind can turn those things. Well, so what you can do is you can create things like this out of paper, or this is going to be much more difficult for people to do because it's metal, but you can make them move with telekinetic power. But perhaps you've never ever done that. So you have no evidence that you can do that. You have no evidence you can do that because you've never achieved it. That's where your faith can come in if you have unwavering faith. If you absolutely believe and have absolute unwavering faith that you can do this, even though you have no evidence that you ever have done it in the past when you've tried, but your faith is strong that today is the day you're going to do it, that gives you an extra energy that you did not have before that can help you to achieve the desired goal that you wanted. So that's that. Okay, so that's the information I'm going to cover today. I will take questions if you have questions about that, and I may or may not answer your question, depends upon the depth of it. I don't want to get into deep things today because that's not the day for it. But if you have questions that you need greater understanding about what I've talked about, please ask them.
I'll just first explain if you want to make one of these yourself. This is just a banana, one of those banana holders. And then this was the center of a wind, not chime,
Just a thing that blows.
spinning thing.
I think
And
they're
this
called
was
wind spinners.
wind spinner. And this was the center part. So we still have this one out here. I don't know. Can you see that?
Oh, okay.
Okay, I see.
And this was the center part. And then Rose,
Very lightweight. Very,
yeah.
not as much as paper though.
Hmm.
So could you explain a little more on faith, like about it being a universal energy and anything like that to be helpful?
Faith is not a universal energy.
It's not.
No, faith is not a universal energy because faith comes from the people themselves. It's not something that's freely out there for anybody to say, I want some faith energy today. Like you can go out in the sun, anybody can go out in the sun, and that's a universal energy because they're going to be out in the sun and it's there for everyone. But faith energy is something that is generated by the person themselves. You create that faith energy, and it's something that's for every individual. So I cannot give you faith, you cannot give me faith. Faith has to come from within you. And what happens when you have that faith, faith is actually a marvelous energy because all of the things that you would like to accomplish to help people's energy centers in their body be more balanced, be more omnidirectional, be spinning faster, be more in harmony, more in sync with each other, all the things that you would desire, to have the auric field be more powerful and exerting, all the things can be accomplished with faith. It's a very powerful key. However, it's one of the most difficult ones to gather, to gain, because there's so many things in people's lives that make them doubt this and doubt that and doubt this, their own abilities, their religions, their leaders, all the things that they doubt, so that faith becomes difficult things for people to have, especially if they don't have religion in their life. But if you learn to work with faith, you can do amazing things. But it doesn't come from without you. It comes from within you, and only from within you.
Okay, so it's not an energy, is it an energy that you can call it in? I mean, I guess,
No, you
I know
cannot.
you said it comes from
No,
within.
you can't call in faith energy. You can call in energy from Elohim as a priest at Holy. You can do that when you're laying your hand on someone's head. You're doing that, but you cannot call in faith energy. You must generate. You must create faith energy from your thoughts and your emotions, and that are so strong and unwavering that even if you have no evidence that that faith is real, you do not have any change in the strength of your faith.
So when using faith in healing, you actually don't necessarily have to have faith, but the person you're healing has to have total faith in you or the powers that are being called in.
Yes, if you're going to use faith for healing, yes and no, I should say. If you're going to be using faith for healing, then yes, the person that's receiving that healing needs to have that faith in the purpose. So for instance, if you're giving someone a blessing, what's their attitude with that blessing? Are they saying, well, I hope this works? Well, that's not faith. I think, well, I'm just doing this to make these people happy that want to do this for me. That's not faith. If they go there, I am so happy and grateful to get this blessing because I know that this will heal me of my problem. And I just can't wait to receive it. And they have that unwavering faith. They create, it's like they open the door and they say, now all the things that you want to do, whether it's a blessing or Celestine Vibronics work, I'm opening that door. I'm opening all my energy centers to you because every one of us, from time to time, and sometimes unfortunately permanently, unless it gets fixed, put up walls to our energy centers. So for instance, maybe in the past, you had your heart broken by someone in a relationship. And it hurt so bad. And you were despondent for months at a time. Didn't want to eat, didn't want to sleep, didn't want to work. You were just so upset about something. Or maybe someone passed away that you loved and you were so despondent about it. So you put up walls around your energy centers. You put up energetic walls so that in the future, if something similar occurs, it won't hurt you as badly as it did that time. Sometimes those walls are necessary to help you cope for the moment. But what happens is people put up the walls and then they don't ever take them down. And so then they become detrimental to your health. And one of your purposes as an energy adept is to be able to perceive those walls that people may have around their energy centers and to be able to change that energy and to take it away. So with the faith, if someone's being healed, what they do, if they have walls around their heart, they break those walls down so they're not there, and they open themselves up to 100% to be healed by the energy that they believe and have that uncompromising faith will occur. And that's what faith can do. When you have faith, it breaks down the barriers that people put around their energy centers. Now, people have energy walls around their mind a lot and around their heart a lot. Those are two great areas, but also around other energy centers. So for instance, if someone has an energy center around their quote, perhaps they tried to do something once that, let's go back to the race. Perhaps they said, well, let's take a high school student who's entering in the track meet, and they just turned out for track the very first time. And they practiced for a month or so, and then they had their first competition, and they lost very badly. And it was embarrassing. It was hurtful. It made them less confident in themselves. And so they put a wall around their energy center of their heart, and their energy center of their mind, and their energy center of their whiz. And that wall says, I'm not ever going to do this again. This was just too painful, and I'm not going to do this again. And so that's what's going to happen. They're going to go the rest of their life, and they'll never do those type of athletic competitions because of their experience there, but only because that walls that they built around the energy centers are there. If you as an adept go in and eliminate that wall, they will now once again be open to doing something like that competition. But it's true for everything. You can do it for relationships. Perhaps someone has had a hurtful relationship, and so they've built up a wall, or maybe they've had not the success they wanted with relationships, whatever reason, or maybe they have, let's take something different. Let's take example of you have a mother and daughter, or mother and son, or father and son, or husband and wife, and they've reached this point where they just don't communicate well anymore. They built walls around their hearts and their minds and their other energy centers that are appropriate for the problem. Maybe they're VIMs, and they don't have that connection anymore that they maybe had in the past. Well, that's all rectifiable. It's all changeable. You can make it better by taking down those walls. And they can make that process easier if they have faith that you can do it. If they have faith, because if they have faith, they're going to make sure they don't have any walls against what you're trying to do. Because as an adept or practitioner, you can take down those walls even if they have them. And even if they don't want you to take them down, you can still take them down because you're going to know how to do that. But it makes the whole process easier if they don't have those walls up to you in the first place. And if they're coming to you for help, then it's likely that they don't have the walls up, or they're not very strong, because otherwise they wouldn't be coming to you for help in the first place.
Yes, thank you. I have a question, dear Philos. According to everything I've heard, to practice Celestine Vibronics on someone, we do need a consent from our client or from whomever we want to help with Celestine Vibronics. We don't just do help without being asked to. So we need a consent.
Yes, that's a very important point. Thank you for bringing it up. And it's not just consent. I think I would use a different word for that. It's requests. You need requests from a person. They have to, so you don't look and say, well, I'm a Celestine adept, so I'm going to solve this problem over here by doing energy change without this person even knowing I'm working on them. No, that would be unethical. No, you're going to work with people that request, and there's a very great reason for that. Just without the walls that we were talking about. If someone requests your help, they've already eliminated or reduced any walls they have to you helping them. And if they haven't requested it, then those walls might be big and strong, and your efforts may be for naught or very little effect, because there's such a great wall that's preventing, especially when someone starts learning how to use Celestine Vibronics. They may find that they can't even get through the walls that people have built in order to be able to help them in their energy centers. So for instance, let's just take a quick example. You may have an aroma. For instance, vanilla is a good example of an aroma that almost every person in the world likes the smell of vanilla. And it brings out good thoughts and good feelings inside them when they smell vanilla. And that's not a universal energy. It's not everybody's like that, but a great portion of the people are. So there may be someone who you've introduced vanilla to, the smell of vanilla, for some purpose to accomplish with Celestine Vibronics. And normally that person might like the smell of vanilla, but because you're working on them, they're not happy about you working on them, they have a wall up and they're going to refuse to like vanilla that day. And so having a person make a request is like that person opening the doors to their energy centers for you to work on. So the walls are down, they're making that request. And that's a very important point, both from an ethics standpoint, but also from a practicality standpoint, of being able to have the desired effect that you want to have as a Celestine Vibronic practitioner or adept on that person. The less walls they have up, the quicker and easier it will be for you to have success with what you're trying to accomplish with them.
So people generally wouldn't come to you unless they had some level of faith in your abilities.
Right, they're not, it depends on, people can get very desperate. So for instance, someone is dying of cancer, they may have never before considered to go to a Celestine Vibronics adept to be killed. Hopefully not killed. No Celestine Vibronics kills anyone. The thing is that they may never have considered to do such a thing before. They always went to their medical doctors, but when their medical doctors fail, they lose faith in the medical doctors. They had faith in the medical doctors, but time and time again, that faith was not successful. And now they're dying. So now they start to look for other methods, but they don't have faith in you. They just have a hope, really, that you might help them. And they're desperate for that help. So they do that. And I'm running out of voice, so I'm not going to be able to talk much longer here. But if they do have faith, if they come to you with faith, then certainly they can be healed much greater.
Thank you. Thank you, dear Philos. So just one conclusion. The energies, the 6 primary energies are actually the conditions we are working with, and the senses, the 6 human senses, are the tools. Am I right?
Yes, that is correct. That is correct.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
yes, you're going to decide which of those things, the physical, universal, et cetera, that you're going to work with, and then you're going to say, well, now this. So you say, for instance, that I'm going to work with physical. All right, that's an easy one. That's going to be the most common one you work with, actually. So let's take the physical. I'm going to. This person has a problem, whatever the problem is. It might be a mental problem, it might be an emotional problem, it might be a physical problem. They have a problem. So what's their problem, and which of my tools am I going to use to address that problem? You may use all of them, or you may only use one of them. And then let's say you're going to use touch. Well, what kind of touch are you going to use? Are you going to use your finger? Are you going to use your hand? Are you going to lay hands on their head? Are you going to slap them in the face? Are you going to use a feather upon them? What type of touch are you going to use if you're going to use that? So, or if you're going to use aromatherapy, what smell are you going to use? So the tool is aromatherapy, but inside that tool there are hundreds of other tools, sub-tools. So which one are you going to use, and which ones are you going to use? So those are the things that you learn in Celestine Vibronics to be able to understand as a science. This is the problem. This is the path I'm going to use to solve the problem. And these are the tools and sub-tools that I'm going to use along that path to solve that problem.
So,
Thank you.
I have a question. Magical act. The magical act. I know you're not going deeper into it now. Would that also involve words of power?
Oh yes, certainly. Words of power are very great. Yes, that would be magical.
And angels.
Angels are more in the faith range.
Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And
Thank
I
you,
know
Philos.
that many of you know some of these things already from books that Ambrosen's written, but this is only the teensy weensy bit that you know. There's a lot more to know.
I just want to say I had somebody helping me do something similar to this. It wasn't Celestine Vibronics, but I had them helping me with my kids, like to remove the walls around from their chakras and stuff. And it really did help because I saw a change in my kids. So I'm a little bit familiar with this, not as Celestine Vibronics, but I actually did hire someone to do this for me, and it does make a difference. So I appreciate you teaching it to us so I can do it myself.
Thank you, Erica. Yes, and doing it yourself is very important. And recognizing walls, as I said before, virtually every person, unless they are very consciously aware of the situation inside themselves, has walls around one of our other energy centers from past experiences that they've had in their lives, that they built the wall to protect themselves from getting hurt. And yes, walls can protect you from getting hurt, but they also protect you from having good experiences, or they prevent you from having good experiences, because the wall stops all the energies from coming in, good or bad. And so helping people to be able to get past their past traumas, whatever they were, so they don't have walls that then allows them to be receptive to good things that they were also keeping out because of that wall.
And something else that I learned when I was having my kids help was that some of the walls would form when they were in the womb from things that I was going through carrying them, which I found amazing because I didn't even know that that could happen.
Yes, even once a baby has reached the quickening stage, their energy centers can certainly be affected in very traumatic, in both good and bad ways, by the energies that they are exposed to in the womb. So at the point that they're in the womb, once they've reached the quickening, their spirit is there, and they are there, and they are a human being, and so they are affected just like anyone else. They are affected by sounds. They are affected by things the mother might eat or drink, good or bad, and so as their energy centers are developing and growing, they can actually be, and oftentimes are in today's world, greatly hurt. And so they come out of the womb already in a damaged state with their energy centers because of what they experienced while they were in the womb, from the things they heard, even their parents arguing with each other. That affects their energy centers. The things the mother eats and drinks, I said, that's very important. So yes, they can have not always walls so much as dysfunctional energy centers. That most walls are created with greater emphasis on when someone is consciously aware of their surroundings, but disruption and malfunction of the energy centers is very common occurrence with infants that are born that experience things in the womb that altered their normal, good harmonic flow of their energy centers.
I have a question. Since you're talking about being in the womb, I don't know if this relates to Celestine Vibronics, but the babies that are aborted in late-term abortions, are there, and they go back to the Cyropian realm, are they damaged from that experience?
They are damaged from that experience. However, Elohim will erase that damage before they are born again.
So they.
But I should say, and I don't know in your group if everyone is understanding this, but when a baby after the quickening, a baby is a life, is a human, is an alamar, and at that point they just happen to be inside the mother. But this concept of abortion in the late terms after the quickening is not a good concept. This is, and it's very sad to me and to all those who are the Celestine realms to see abortions carried out after the quickening, because it is murder. I'm sorry, that is the case. And if someone doesn't agree with that, then I'm sorry, but that's the reality. If you could take a baby out of a womb, even if it's after half-term pregnancy, you could take that baby out of the womb and it would be viable and it would be able to be alive and to live a life and grow as a child. Then that's a child. The fact that it's in the womb doesn't make it less of a child. It's just the location where it is, like it's in this room or that room. And I'm getting off on topics that I probably shouldn't be on. But
I have another question, dear Philos, speaking about this. So walls are created by free will. This is why a person in a conscious level being alive by free will creates walls. In the prenatal period, we have negative or positive energy imprints upon the auric field and the energy centers. But my question is, since Celestine Vibronics is an energy technique and it uses universal, magical, and faith, probably it can also help with the imprints we have in the premortal life. Say, I remember pretty much from my past lives. I have also a few clients that remember from their past lives. We can do a healing with Celestine Vibronics, yes?
you said a lot of things there, so I'm trying to think about it. All right, so let's first go back to the beginning where you said walls are consciously created. Yes and no. Walls are, when you say consciously, that means you have an intent. So that means that someone is purposely saying, I'm going to put a wall around my heart, for instance, so I don't have a broken heart anymore. I'm not going to let myself ever get close to someone again that I'm so close to them that if they leave me, I will have a broken heart. That's a conscious wall put around the heart. But there are also subconscious walls or unconscious walls or walls that materialize just because of someone's pain that can create a wall even without them consciously thinking about creating a wall and creating barriers. So that can occur as well. So So that was the first thing. Now let me think. You wanted to know, okay, let's go to past life. So it's very rare for anyone to have actual past lives of their own, meaning that they've lived a mortal life more than once. It's almost never necessary. It can happen, can occur, but if someone's lived a full life, that they live to the end of their life, then there's very little reason that they would have to ever come back another time, because they've experienced all the things that they needed to experience. They may not have chosen to make those experiences, but they had the opportunity. So for instance, marriage is a wonderful experience of mortality, and it can continue into the lives that come afterwards, the life that comes afterwards. But some people may choose not to have marriage, not to get married, not to have that level of commitment to another person. And that's fine, but yet even though they may never have experienced marriage, they did experience the opportunity to make that choice. And so that is checked off the list. They never have to have that opportunity again because they had the opportunity and it's gone. Now, however, they may say, let's say when you're up in the premarital existence, and you might think that, well, there's a lot of things I would like to have experiences with before I come down into this mortality that I can have inside me to be able to help me in that life. And so you're able to look at every life that has ever existed upon your earth, not other earths, but on your earth. You're able to look at every single life, from the kings and queens to the penniless beggars. You're able to look at every life. And you can take snippets, not the whole life, but you can take snippets. You can look at that. And unlike now, where you have the capacity only of a very small part of your brain, when you're in the premarital life, you have the capacity of all of your brain. So you can actually accumulate and process a great amount of knowledge that you wouldn't be able to have done in your normal physical mortal life. And so you can look at those lives. You can say, well, I want to have an experience. I want to make sure I understand empathy. So I want to understand people who are very poor and are beggars. I want to see the life of a beggar, and I want to see the suffering that they have to go through, so that I can understand that, so that when I'm in my physical life, I'll just have a natural empathy. I may not remember the memory, but I'll have the empathy because that memory is encoded in me. And so in that premarital life, you can look at that beggar's life. You can take into you memories that are just as clear as if they were your own memories, but they are that person's memories, not yours. But that won't be perceptible to someone, for instance, if they're doing a past life regression, they would see that as their own life, time that they had lived, when in fact it was someone else's life. And maybe they want to do the opposite. They say, well, I'm going to be born to middle-class parents, probably, because that's who I chose. And so if I'm going to be born to middle-class parents, I'd like to know what it's like to be just so wealthy that you don't even have to think about money. You can buy anything you want to buy. So I'm going to look at this person's life here. That they died 100 years ago, but they were quite wealthy when they lived their life. I want to see what it was like, what were the high points, what were the low points. I want to take all those things in so that I'll understand what it's like to be rich. Why? I don't know. Maybe because the person wanted to understand that. It's not for others to judge what memories people choose. And so maybe they're going to choose traumatic things, like they were raped, or they were poor, or they were killed in battle, or maybe they're going to choose glorious things, like they were a very popular politician, or they were a king or a queen. And all of those things they can choose, but they're other people's memories, and they're encoding them in themselves before they are born into mortality, so that those memories will help them be a better person in this life. Nobody comes from the premortal existence into this world not hoping to come out of this world better than they came in. And so they bring memories with them that they've basically adopted to help them in that purpose. Now, there are people who come in that are far more advanced than others because of where they advanced in the premortal existence. So just like you look at people in this life and you could say, this person, from the moment they are born to the moment they died, they didn't really learn much, be much, they just existed. And then you can look at this other person and look at all that they improved themselves as an Alamar, all the improvements they made, And you can say, wow, that person really used this life well. Well, that person probably before they ever came into this life had gained a great amount of knowledge and abilities and empathy and emotions and feelings in the primordial existence.
Can those memories that are brought in get out of balance so that you need to?
Yeah, like irrational fears in the children. When I have child clients that have a totally irrational fears, like when I was young, I had a fear like being eaten by birds. This is why I am afraid of birds. I had this irrational fear that I was somewhere eaten alive by them in some desert. Is this a premortal downloaded memory in me and in the children that they have such fears, irrational fears and phobias?
Right, that's a very good question. And I should say, if you have a fear of birds, you probably should not come visit in Brooklyn. Yes, very big bites.
I love Sunny.
Very big bites. All right, so yes, to answer your question, it's very unlikely that that fear occurred because of anything that happened in the premarital existence. And why that fear is there is not actually that necessary to know. Because with Celestine Vibronics, all you need to know is that it exists, and then you solve the problem. So, for instance, let's give an example. In Broson's birds, and you have a fear of birds that you had. So you would have what you would say an irrational fear of birds. And then you come to a place like the Broson's house where it has big birds with big voices that are very scary and beaks that can break your finger just by crunching on it. And so that's just going to, as a natural thing, was going to make your fears be accentuated and greater because you're seeing in reality the things that you fear. And so then if you find that you use Celestine Vibronics to make a change, you can make a change in your fear. So how would you do that with Celestine Vibronics? So there's a lot of different ways that someone might choose as an adept to do that, but we're going to take an example. And if I've talked in too long, please let me know. I don't have any concept of time, so I could talk here for all day, and I wouldn't know that it's all day for you. So
we're good. We're good.
We're here.
So let's say that you're laying on the table. You're being treated as Celestine Vibronics. Well, the first step was to help someone not be afraid of birds would be to have them to hold a feather in their hands and to be stroking that feather with their hands while you are simultaneously stroking their body, their naked skin, with a feather. And so they're ideally, and I know that people have proprieties about that, but in this case, a person being not told, they don't have to be totally nude, but they have to be somewhat, they have a lot of bare skin showing so that you can put that feather on the bare skin and all parts of the body, from the face and the neck and down their torso and their legs and their feet. And so they're really getting exposed to the energy of a bird simply from the feathers. Remember, they're holding and stroking a feather as well while you're doing all of that. And then you're going to introduce sounds. So that was the first thing. You use touch. And now you're going to introduce sound. So you have a soundtrack that you have some birds making different noises, different sounds that are recorded, and you could get them on different recordings. So you play that in the background, so they're hearing those sounds. And then if you're going to take them now to, and you may actually do this in your Celestine Vibronics. Celestine Vibronics doesn't have to stay in one place. You say in the case if someone is afraid of birds, well, let's go together down to the bird store or the zoo or someplace where you can actually see birds, but they're behind bars, so you're not going to be afraid of them. They're not going to hurt you. They're in another cage, but you're going to get to see them. And then they get to see other people physically reacting with them, so that they actually take them out, they hold them on their hand, they get to see that. And then they begin to say, all right, well, now take your feather that you have in your hand and pet the bird with the feather. So now they're not actually touching the bird, but they're petting the bird with the feather. And they see the bird doesn't react badly, it likes that. And so now you let them you take a bird who you already know is going to be cooperative, so you don't want to take a bird who has a nasty temper. You take a bird who's has a good temper, likes to be around people, likes to be touched, and you let them slowly replace their feather with that finger, slowly touching the bird. And so step by step, you change that energy, and they get to see that all birds aren't scary. Some birds aren't, and so that's just a very quick and very partial example of how you use Celestine Vibronics to help someone get over their fear, irrational fear of birds. And it works for anything like that, anything that someone has an irrational fear. Now remember, irrational fears come from the zik, right?
Or we call you say.
Oh, you call it the zik. All right, zay works too. They're both the same. So it comes from the zay, and that energy center holds what we call premortal fears. Premortal fears are fears that come through your ancestors. So even though you may never have had a bad experience with birds, didn't have a bad experience in the premortal existence, you really never had a bad experience in this life either, which is why to you it seems like an irrational fear. But your ancestors may have had. Maybe your great grandfather or grandmother was, maybe they were wounded in or something, and they weren't able to help themselves, and so they were helpless on the ground, and they were bleeding, and then some buzzards and vultures came in and started picking at their flesh while they were still alive. Well, that would give them a pretty great fear of birds, because they know these birds are eating them alive. And so that is such a powerful image that happened to them. And maybe they died from that experience. They died being eaten by birds. And so that genetically gets in their genes and can be passed on to their descendants. And so oftentimes when you're looking at irrational fears, they come from the zay, from the zik, from the zay center, from that center that holds premortal fears. And those premortal fears are actually fears from ancestors that were so powerful that they got encoded into the genes themselves, and they are passed on as irrational fears into their descendants. And so again, that's something you can change with Celestine Vibronics. You can change all those energies, and you don't even need to know what I just told you. That might be the source, but you don't actually need to know that's the source to change, to make the effective change. But if you do know it is the source, then it might give you a better concept of what tools you're going to use to affect the change that you desire.
So we'll do bird therapy while you're here.
No, I think Elohim, they are doing Celestine Vibronics right now, because when we changed place, I got apartment just right above my study and meditation room. I have a whole nest of more than 20 wild pigeons. So Celestine Vibronics is already done to me a whole year now. So I don't have this phobia like I used to have. I can watch them now. I can even sit on the terrace. So yeah, Elohim is treating me with Celestine Vibronics, I should say.
I don't know if it's appropriate in this class or not, but you mentioned the zik, and I remember you gave a very interesting explanation. It's the same energy center, but it's Celestine Vibronics. It's called the zik, and we call it the zay.
Yes, well, there are energies that are, even though they may sound different to you, like zik and zay, that doesn't sound the same at all. Say zik, zay, it doesn't sound the same, but they are very closely related, and they have a harmonic energy that works well together. So I know another good example of that is the oo and o, very similar sounds, and yet they have a cascading effect if you use them together that actually amplifies the effect. And that would be something that you should talk about in your classes, if your own classes. Because I know that you teach the energy centers as well, but it's a lot more deep with Celestine Vibronics. Was I too obtuse to that?
Probably.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't think anybody really got that.
I'm not the best teacher, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're what?
I have
Yeah,
a
no,
you're great.
It's not necessarily.
You're a great teacher.
I think, speaking of teaching, each of us is only able to absorb a certain amount at a time. So we probably should not continue today because there's going to be an overload of information and you need time to process what you've learned already today.
And
Thank you,
I'll
dear
make sure.
Philos.
Thank you, Philos.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You're so
Thank
welcome.
you.
It's nice to know that you appreciate what you have received today. Thank you for letting me know that.
And I'll make sure that these videos will be available so that you can refer back to them.
Thank
We are
you.
so honored to have you here.
Thank you so much, Sumera.
Well, I will say goodbye. It's been my honor to be able to speak to you today. It's my favorite subject in the whole world to talk about, so I'm always grateful for the opportunity to do that. And I hope we get this opportunity again very soon. I know it's not up to me for that, so I will say goodbye and go on your lights with love and joy until we meet again.
So we'll meet again.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Oh,
Great class.
Oh, wow. Okay, give me a second here. Something that Philos mentioned at the end, and I don't remember we were talking about it yet before, but Brother Reggie, did we talk about the O and the U for people yet?
no, not yet.
You want to share that?
Sure, with your permission, yeah, of course, because he talked about it briefly. That he said we talk about it in the class going forward, but we can talk about.
Brother Reggie has been working with the energy centers a lot over quite an extended period of time, very consistently, and he discovered on his own, we never talked about it, that their power of U for your aura is amplified when you and so he was able to discover the second sound, which I had never shared with him, which is O, and it put the O and the U together, you can get great things. So Brother Reggie,
Right.
so you started with O. Have you had the chance to blend the two together yet, O and U?
Yes, I did. I started doing it after we had that conversation last week. We started the conversation Sunday. I spoke and asked some questions, and I mentioned, from the last time we had a conversation about Hanukkah, doing the Warrior Within discussion, and we're going over Hanukkah. And I mentioned oh, that's when Brother and Brosen, we started talking, and I mentioned the ooh aspect. So what I usually do is, I was talking about the Hanukkah last time. I think I said oh last time by accident. It goes by accident as I'm discussing it. And so I started doing both. Ooh, oh, ooh, oh. I do that, and I started feeling the shift after I do that. So I go through all the Hanukkah from the Ka all the way down with at the end the whole time, right? After I do, it's like Vim. Vim, when you start Vim, you go Vim. The tongue vibrates up and down between the upper palate of the gum and the lower aspect of the tongue. So you get that vibration. What that does is sends a resonance throughout the whole body, energizing that the Vim section of your energy center. With the O, it's the same thing. You kind of all the energy centers in balance. When you shift the duality, it becomes a duality of the energy, dual, but it's still apply that to O, you change the frequency from the original presentation of the energy center. As I started doing it, I noticed the difference when I did that. So I usually, after I'm done, everything is bright, everything is laser focused, everything is my hearing, my sight, sense. I'm just feeling things at a different level. It's just very interesting. And what happens is that my students now, they kind of sense me, they can't the energy, they can't explain it. So and also people, when I walk around, people literally 20 feet away from me 30 feet away, they stop and they turn around, look. It's kind of interesting. I mean, I'm doing something great. My energy is expanding even more. It's very, very powerful. So it goes, ooh, oh. Am I doing it right, Brother Rosen?
You can do it either way. You can you can
Okay.
do it. You can do it the higher to the lower, or you can do it from the lower to the higher.
Okay.
But the thing that the best way when you're doing it is that the first sound is maybe 25% and the second sound is 75% of your sound. So if you did like oh, ooh, ooh, you know, so that's or ooh, oh, my voice is kind of not working since Philos talk so much. So anyway, but yeah, so you don't have to be thinking about percentages so much, but just think about just like when you do the Vim, it starts out Vim, but it quickly goes to the vibrational part, which lasts much longer. Or whiz is the same way. It starts out whiz, and that zzz sound is much longer than the first W type sound that comes from it. So those dual sounds, the duality of those sounds on the energy center, it's think about driving down a road. If you're driving down a long straight road, the highway's just going long and straight for a long period of time, and it's really easy to get lulled into it's hard to stay awake sometimes, especially if you're on a road that has trees where the sunlight's coming through and there's shadows and there's light on the road and it's flickering. It can be very hypnotic, but because it's all the same. But if the road curves and changes and it goes uphill and downhill, it's different. You're not going to likely fall asleep at the wheel because it's not hypnotic in that effect. And that's why some of the sounds when you do the Lanica are dual sounds. And so you've got the whiz and the Vim and the ooh sound are all dual sounds at their optimum. But you can do any one of those with just a single sound and it's still going to have effect. So for instance, if you want to do the whiz sound and just did the zzz sound, that would work still to energize that energy center, not quite as effectively as doing the dual sounds, but still would work. And so think about, when you're thinking about those dual sounds, think about the difference between driving on a long straight road where it's easy to just kind of fall asleep at the wheel versus where you have that change in sounds, change in direction that allows you to stay more wide awake and is even more effective at opening and energizing that energy center.
Oh, thank you,
I
Reggie.
have a question.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome.
I'll have to try that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Just one. Yeah, I have a question, Brother Reggie.
Sure.
Since you are a Kung Fu warrior, so when you use the sound for the auric field, how do you breathe? Do you breathe from the lower Tandian? Because I know in the martial arts, same here with Reiki, because it's an art of living. I live Reiki, you live Kung Fu. We use the three Tandian to breathe in. When you just speaking the sounds, do you use the lower Tandian? Do you concentrate the energy there and you just whoosh the sound?
Good question. Good, very good. So I've been studying martial arts for 30 years. It's automatic for me. I don't breathe from my chest. Automatic. All my breathing comes down from my dantian, automatically. So even as I'm talking right now, I'm breathing from my dantian. The dragon stove, dragon. So when I do the Lanica, I do it from my dantian. It gives it more power, it gives it more resonation, and it gives it more energy because it automatically goes into the energy center of my chi. Up and energizes the energy centers of the line.
Exactly.
What I do.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I do.
This
So
is what is also happening.
So either Dansha or Reggie, what you're just talking about, how would anyone else learn to do what you're talking about?
Sure. So for anybody else, you're just breathing from your stomach. Instead of from your chest, you just breathe from the stomach. So you put your hands on your stomach and you start saying the Lanaka, ka, and you feel a vibration in your stomach when you do that. When you feel that vibration in your stomach, that means you're breathing from here. That's where the center is coming from. The energy is coming from there. So once you start doing that,
yeah.
go ahead.
At the
you, Brother
stomach,
Reggie.
it's very important because of the umbilical cord. Because in the prenatal life of the baby, all the information and all the food comes through the umbilical cord. This is why in Reiki, also in energy, all the energy healings and in martial arts, this is the key center for direct access to all the vital energies. It's like you being the mom to yourself. This is why I asked Brother Reggie if he is also breathing from the lower Tantien. The navel. The navel is very important for reaching out to every single organ and every single energy center. This is why Brother Reggie says you can sing all the sounds just having your hands upon the navel, just balancing everything.
And then when you start doing it, what tends to happen is it gets hot. When it gets hot, that means you enter. This is also in dragon stove. That's called dragon stove will start building up with energy. You feel that it starts reversing throughout all your body. So when I do the Lanaka with that, I automatically feel it. It's kind of hard to describe it. It's like a switch. It turns on just like that, very quickly.
Awesome.
Wow,
Thank
thank
you.
you for sharing.
Yeah, both of you.
Thank you.
That was great.
You're welcome.
It's natural and nurturing.
All right. I think we'll say goodbye for today, unless someone else has some other comments they need to make for today. I love you so much, everyone. I thank you so much for taking some of your day to be with us. It's very appreciated.
Thank you
Yes,
for
we
sharing,
love you.
everyone.
Sharing, yes, great meeting.
This was good. This was great.
Good.
Great, yeah.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
all the information.
Everyone have a wonderful week.
You too, everyone. Have a wonderful week. Namaste.
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 Love y'all.
Love you too.